let's talk about the Championship title race because, quite frankly, it's fascinating me. I think there's some really, really interesting points to discuss. Let's go. In this video, we are going to delve into the runners and riders, take a deeper look into their squads, talk about some strengths and weaknesses, and pick out some really important metrics I think could be crucial as we head into the second half of the season. Let's begin with Sunderland, who currently are in 4th place. So after 25 games, Sunderland have picked up 47 points. They are so refreshing to watch, aren't they? Full of speed, enthusiasm, energy, and the word that comes to mind straight away when I describe this team managed by Reggie Lebris is fearless. And I talk about this fearless nature. The average age of their squad is 23.6, the youngest in the league. And that is so key and pivotal to the way that Lebris wants his team to play. It's all about fast-paced movements. It's energetic. It's high-intensity stuff. And the squad is built for that. It is perfectly aligned with that. Now, the question that comes to me straight away before we look at the squad in detail is, are they going to seize up or attack with no fear? That's the question that I have, and that's always the fear when we're talking about a young squad. Are they going to seize up and start looking around for experience? And there are bits of experience in that team, but the large bulk of it and the key players are very, very young, and some of the best performers this season have been very, very young. Could that be a concern? I'm not entirely sure yet. That's a question that we're going to see answered as the season progresses. But it definitely is something to put out there. And I'm sure the fans will know better than I will. Let me know in the comments down below, some of the fans. Do you think that's going to be the case? Some really important stuff as well. Unbeaten at home. They've made the Stadium of Light a real fortress. And that's a cliche. But when you've got a stadium like that, and when you've got a fan base as loyal and as contagious with their energy like that, it's really, really important to make that work. And they have. You know, that is a contagious energy that you get from supporters down to the players. And again, with the type of players they've got and the way they want to play, that is really, really important. The second best non-penalty XG versus goals in the league, so they're extremely clinical from open play too. Winning the XG battle, I think, will make a difference. I think it's sometimes almost laughed off or not taken seriously. I get it, XG, expected goal, it's not for everybody, but in the fine margins, when we're talking about a very, very tight title race I think we could have on our hands, the fine margins will be very, very important. Let's talk about the squad. Let's have a deeper look into this Sunderland team because, again, there's some really, really important things we need to dissect. So here we are then. This is the full Sunderland squad in all its glory. I think there's some really interesting points to delve into. The first one that is evidently clear is that Reggie Lebris has a preferred 11 and formation. He does have his favourite 11 after 25 games hitting the midpoint of the season. And that is very, very obvious when looking at the appearances of all the players in those different positions. Only recently we've seen some heavy rotation. 25 players have been used by Sunderland in the Championship so far this season. They've used the least number of subs in the league with 65, 23 less than the next lowest. But it's clear, he does have his preferred starting 11. Definitely a consistent back four. Trevor Hume looks to be the go-to guy at right back, 09, and Mebham looked to be the two centre-backs. At left back, Dennis Sirkin seems to be the guy. Now, perhaps when Ballard comes back, and that injury's been a real blow, he's a really, really good centre-back and one that has a fantastic ceiling, highly rated at Sunderland. Really, really good defender. Does he come back in as one of those centre-backs? We'll have to wait and see when he returns to fitness. But a crucial element to a side competing at the top end of the Championship or any title or any league for that matter is a consistent back four. I think we have seen that. Moving into the midfield, the trio, it picks itself, doesn't it? I think we know the best trio in this Sunderland squad available. It's Dan Neil, it's Joe Bellingham, and it is Chris Rigg. Clearly, those are the three players he wants to play in the middle of the park. They're young, they're energetic. Neil has played 24 out of the 25 Championship games. A serious injury to one of those could be derailing. I know Chris Rigg has had some minor injuries so far this season, but Bellingham and Neil have played the majority of games. You can see then Neil has played 16 games in the deeper role, 8 games slightly higher up. Joe Bellingham, 7 slightly higher up, 14 slightly deeper. They've been the heartbeat of this team, but they are crucial and they fit the style fantastically well. I think beyond them, Alan Brown seems to be the understudy, or the only understudy. I'm looking at those players there. It is those three and Alan Brown filling in. And going forward, like I said, an injury to one of those players, how can they deal with that? Again, that has to be a question mark, but there's definitely a preferred 3 that Reggie Lebris has gone for this season. It's Joe Bellingham, it's Dan Neil and Chris Rigg, and can you argue with that? They are absolutely brilliant. Now, Roberts on the right-hand side, as we scroll down here, does seem to be the only comfortable option. 3rd most appearances in the team in a demanding role. That is potentially a cause for concern. He's being asked to play a lot of games. He's played 18 games in that position. And I look at the other players that have had a go there. You know, Chris Rigg has played slightly on that wide area. Mienda's done it. Watson has played on the right, but a lot of the season he's played on the left. Again, it's a very demanding role. We know that they want to attack in those wide areas and win the ball in those wide areas. And the amount of running that Roberts does, the goal contributions this season have been maybe slightly drier than previous years. But it's all about the off-the-ball stuff just as much as it is about the in-possession stuff. And we know that it's really, really important that he's fully fit, he's raring to go, and he can play as that key cog in that position. I think there has to be a bit of January recruitment there in terms of bringing in an understudy, not a replacement, not somebody that comes in for Patrick Roberts, but for somebody that can almost share the workload at times and have a bit of a rotational option. Because you look at that right side, the appearances compared to the other players, it looks to be Roberts and then a few players that have filled in there every now and again. The left wing spot is the most rotated part of that team. If we look at the whole squad, the left-hand side has been the most rotated position. You feel Tom Watson would probably be the first choice. It's a real injury blow. He was absolutely fantastic before that injury in recent weeks. He scored a fantastic set of goals in a short amount of time and was impacting games, not just with output, his dribbling ability. He was almost a Jack Clark Corey Made, not just because they look fairly similar and because they play fairly similar. They do have a lot of similarities in the way that they affect the opposition goal and affect the opposition box. We did a real deep dive into him in one of his recent games before he got injured, and we spoke about how important he is. They put a lot of players on the left-hand side. Mundle's done it, Watson's done it, Mienda, you can see he's done it. Jack Clark, of course, has left. He played 2 games there. They have tried different players out there. Again, that is the most rotated part of the pitch. You feel that if Tom Watson's injury isn't a really, really long-term one, he will come in. But we know Mundle can do a fine job in that position. Up front, Isidore is the most used striker. He's impressed me this season. He really, really has. He's been absolutely fantastic. 18 games, comfortably the most played striker in this team. He has played 6 games. Connolly's had a go with just 1. Chris Rigg, again, with just 1. But he's been fantastic. He impressed me against Sheffield United and has developed so well under Reggie Lebris this season. 7 goals in 19 starts. He's been very, very good. So I like the look of this Sunderland squad. It's a really, really exciting squad, isn't it? There are a few areas that I think could be looked at in January when it comes to providing some understudies and provide some quality and depth. I think beyond that starting 11, I do have a few question marks over that depth. A few positions do look lighter than others, but it's a very exciting squad. It's come together. It fits perfectly with the manager and the style that he wants to play. But perhaps in January, a few more additions. Let's wait and see. But I like the look of it. It's really strong. It's really exciting. And it's one of my favourite to watch. Next up, Sheffield United, 3rd place, 49 points so far. Now, people will forget this team started with 2 less points than everybody else, and the majority of that playing squad did have to be rebuilt. And that really should be mentioned. The best of Sheffield United this season has been so refreshing. The mixture of different profiles has worked wonders. The average age of the squad has dropped massively this season, 24.4, the second youngest team in the league. We've just spoken about the youngest team in Sunderland. Sheffield United have the second youngest. Their biggest problem and their biggest hindrance is the injuries to that first 11 because they've been affected. They really, really have. Let's take a look at this squad in detail. Let's start off with the goalkeeper because Michael Cooper has been exceptional. The signing of Michael Cooper from Plymouth has been brilliant. He's been affected by injuries in the past, and if he hadn't have been injured, I think he could have been playing in the Premier League or definitely the top end of the Championship far sooner than he is. He is an outstanding, outstanding goalkeeper. Having a trustworthy number 1 is pivotal. Signing late, still started the second most number of games, the second best save percentage in the league too. He's been great. 23 appearances, absolutely fantastic. At fullback, they're strong. Gilchrist has been great on loan from Chelsea, 21 appearances, Burrows 20. That is clearly the reliable go-to preferred pair. Have they got other options? I think they do. McCallum is a really, really good other option instead of Burrows. I know Sariki's injured and Shackleton's injured as well, so maybe that right-back position isn't looking as strong when we look at the available depth. On the whole, though, the fullbacks that are fit in Gilchrist and Burrows are very, very good. They've been exceptional this season. The goal contributions of Burrows has really come to life. We knew what he could do at Peterborough. He's an outstanding fullback, an outstanding modern left-back. At centre-back, we start having a couple of concerns because this Suter injury is an absolutely huge blow. He was brilliant in the first half of the season, on loan from Leicester. It was a statement signing, but one that fitted this Chris Wilder team like a duck to water, really, wasn't it? He's a powerful, strong, robust defender. Isn't necessarily slow, not the quickest, but he's not that type of defender. He's a very, very strong centre-back. And that injury is massive. That injury is very, very damaging. The most played centre-back for Sheffield United this season. How do they cope with that? I think they have to delve into the market in January. I think that sounds an obvious thing to say, but it's true. They have to look at that in January. Because Robinson, he came in against Sunderland, of course, he was at fault for the goal. He does look a little bit shaky. I'm not sure you can rely on him as that replacement for Suter. They've got to come in and find a replacement. I know Gilchrist can play that, but again, you're then going back to the idea that at right back, they haven't got loads of options that are available and that are a fit, and Gilchrist as that right back is a very, very good option. So they do have to look at the centre-back department. That's the first area they've really, really struggled with injuries, and considering it could be a long-term injury, they've got to look at finding a replacement because that back four has been brilliant. Some of the defensive numbers have been outstanding this season. Moving into the midfield, Sousa and Arblaster, they were the preferred pair. They're now both injured. It's another area that needs addressing. Peck and Davis played together in that double pivot in the last game. To have both Sousa and Arblaster out is a dramatic blow. I think Arblaster could be out for the whole season, if I'm not mistaken. Sousa not as bad as that, but to have them both out is really, really damaging. Into the number 10 spot, Callum O'Hare's played every single championship game this season. He's played 1,966 minutes. You can see, when you look at the depth behind him, Brewster and Hamer, who can play there, he's played 18 games. He has been so important, and he's basically been the only number 10 they've had all season. And to play that many minutes and play the way he does, I think is even more impressive. He's front-footed, he's very press-hungry, he's in your face, he's everywhere. He's absolutely all over the pitch, and to play over 1,900 minutes is a remarkable achievement. But it does highlight the point that Chris Wilder doesn't really have any other options. He can't rotate him, and that is visualised, in front of you now. He doesn't have anyone, to be honest, behind him that is anywhere near to the level or can play in the same way as Hamer does in that role, and that is a concern that has to be addressed once again, along with the other deeper midfield position in January. Hamer has that left-hand side on absolute lock. He's been phenomenal. He's played the third most minutes in the Sheffield United squad, 5 goals, 5 assists. The output's fantastic. He's one of the very few left that is fit, that can't get injured, easy said than done, and importantly, can't leave in January. There will be interest because he's been that good, but you can't afford to lose him. You cannot afford to lose him, or Callum O'Hare for that matter too. Raksaki on the right looks like dynamite when he plays, and again he's another that's now injured, which is a problem, a real problem. We know how important he is with that raw 1v1 threat on the right. Brooks can do it, but not on his own. Again, if you look at the options behind Raksaki, you've got Brooks, and then you're looking at Callum O'Hare, who we know is one of the only players that can play in that number 10 position. They are stretched. They are very, very, very stretched in the forward areas of the pitch. And actually, as we provided evidence through this section, in most areas of the pitch too. Up top, again, they haven't avoided injuries there either. Camber's been out for over a month. Kiefer Moore has had his issues. He's now back, but he's had his problems with injuries this season already. There's a real severe lack of reliability in that crucial position. Looks like Kiefer Moore's played 16 games. Campbell's played 8 games. Brewster, we're still not convinced on him. He's only played twice in that position. They have got others that can do it, but the preferred two, out injured, or have almost flirted with each other, not literally, in the way that one's been fit and one hasn't. Campbell, though, really impressed me when he's played this season. Top goal scorer in the team, 6 goals in 8 starts. If fit, that's a promotion-winning return, but he's not currently fit. And there definitely is work to be done with the Sheffield United squad. They've done so well to get to this point. But on paper, although it's a really strong squad, and there's a lovely blend between developing players that are now heading into their best years, and you've got experienced ones in there too, the biggest problem in every segment of that squad is they're being affected by injuries. They're currently stretched and very light in various positions. They've got key players that can't have their minutes managed, and that can be really dangerous too. January is so important for Sheffield United. The new ownership probably needs to look at bringing in 4 or 5 first-team players in all 3 sections of the pitch. They've done a great job to be in this title race, but I do have my concerns. Injuries have not been very good for them so far this season whatsoever. Burnley next, second place, 49 points so far, and the defensive numbers are some of the best the Championship has ever seen. Least number of goals conceded with just 9 in 25 games. That's a joke. And the most clean sheets with 15 too. When it works, they grind out and their robust professional performances on a consistent basis, home and away. They've picked up the most points on the road this season. Suddenly, they look like a real force in this title race. Let's take a look at their squad. Let's start with the goalkeeper, James Trafford, because there were question marks over him going into the season, but he's nailed down that number 1 spot. He has been brilliant. Highest save percentage in the league with 85%. He's been great. He's been absolutely brilliant. He's played 24 out of 25 games this season. Having a go-to number 1 goalkeeper is really, really important. We spoke about it with Sheffield United. We didn't really speak about it with Sunderland, but we should have done. Patterson is that number 1 goalkeeper that's done fantastically well. Trafford is no different. He is a brilliant goalkeeper. The Premier League is a struggling time for him. But in the Championship, with the room to develop, when he's not being peppered against in the way that Scott Parker has set up this team, that's not the case. He has thrived. The back 4 has been consistent throughout, as expected for a side, performing so well at the back. You can see Roberts is the go-to right back, Esteve and Egan Riley are the 2 centre-backs, and Perez is the left back. Bashir Humphreys has come in and worked as the utility man in all 3 of those positions, but it's clear that back 4 is set in stone. And when we talk about a team that are that good defensively, and we've already highlighted some of those metrics, that's not a surprise. That really is not a surprise whatsoever. Let's move forward into that double pivot. Cullen and Brownhill have been that go-to but double pivot for them this season. Brownhill's goal contributions have been crucial, 9 goals and 3 assists. That can't be argued with at all. I know Brownhill, for some Burnley fans, isn't their favourite. You can't argue with the impact. He's got 12 goal contributions to his name, playing in a deeper role. He can play in the number 10 position. We'll come on to that in just a second, because the front 4 positions have been rotated the most. Hannibal has played just the most amount of games in that number 10 spot, but there has been a variety. Anthony and Koleosho have been the preferred wide players, but again, there's been plenty of rotation and alternation on both sides. My biggest question when I look at this attacking depth is, can I see enough goals in the forward areas? Now, that might sound silly. They're second in the league. They're doing fantastically well. They are scoring goals. I do have a few concerns over the goal output from those players, and I do question whether or not there are enough goals in those spots. Now, nobody in those positions, I can tell you, have more than 3 goals to their game. Now, I suppose it's fine when you're not conceding goals and you are so resolute. Perhaps there's a few sustainability questions there, because if there are a few goals that go in, can you turn to players other than Brownhill who have scored more than 3 goals? That is the question. But they've done well to get to this point, so I'm not knocking them too much for that. I do have maybe a few doubts here and there, but on the whole, very, very talented. A variety of options up top too, all adding something a little bit different. Fleming, Rodriguez, Foster, again, some very different profiles there, but they do offer something that is, like I said, different in all of their cool ways. Have they got a 20-plus goal striker in there? No, but is that important when they're conceding 0.4 goals per 90? You'd argue not so much. Ashley Barnes has recently joined as well. He's a welcome addition, another leader added to the group as well. Yeah, I do like this Burnley squad. Defensively is where they get their plaudits, and so they should, because they've been brilliant. Maybe a few question marks over the goal output of their forward players. They have got options. They've just brought in an experienced striker that knows what it's like to play for Burnley and knows what it's like to get out of the Championship, and that's what Burnley want to do. Well and truly in this title race, defensively, they do phenomenal. Absolutely brilliant. And finally, top spot, Leeds United, 52 points so far. They top the charts in so many metrics. They've created the highest XG with 43.86, conceded the least with 15.86. They've scored the most goals and conceded the third least. I think they have the tightest squad in this title race. Out of the 14, they started the least number of players with just 19. As you can see on the screen right now with this detailed breakdown of this Leeds squad. Now, whatever you say about Melia, let's begin with the goalkeeper. He is definitely Daniel Farke's number one. There is nobody able to doubt that. He's played every minute of the championship season, the only team out of the four that we've mentioned to play just a single goalkeeper so far. He's played every minute of every single game. Moving into the defenders and the centre-backs first, the options have been very, very consistent. Rodon and Struijk have been the pair, bar once. Again, it's very important to have consistency between your two centre-backs, keeping them both fit and not seeing either of them leave in January is an absolute must. Ampadu can play there, but there's a strong, ready-made bond there, and they've had a great season. That is the go-to centre-back pairing. Moving into the full-back areas, we've got Bogle and Brahim that can play at right-back, at left-back, Firpo, Brahim again, and of course, Winovoba can also play in that position. It was clear Bogle and Firpo were the preferred options at left and right back, but with Firpo's injury, Brahim's had to cover on that left-hand side recently. In fact, he's played 2 games on the right and 9 times on the left. But again, that's not a concern. I think Firpo is now coming back to fitness. He'll regain that position, you'd imagine, on that left-hand side. They've got areas and players that can fill in those different positions. I'm not concerned about Leeds defensively. They have actually done really, really well defensively. And we'll speak about the attacking output in just a second and speak about the brilliant types of players they've got in those forward areas. But defensively, they've been very, very good. In fact, I told you, they conceded the least XG with 15.86 and only conceded the third least number of goals. They're absolutely fine in that department. As we move on to the double pivot, and in a way, they've almost sort of had 2 different double pivots, haven't they? To be honest, that's how I describe it this season. Ampadu and Gruev started the season before both getting injured, and then Rothwell and Tanaka sort of replaced them in that position. It's now Daniel Farke's job to find out what his best 2 looks like now with Ampadu back. It's a nice problem to have, of course, but they're not lacking quality options in that position. Tanaka has been brilliant, one of the best, if not the best, midfielders in the championship this season. Rothwell has come in. Very different profile. He's more of a deep-line playmaker. He's a ticker. He has plenty of touch of the ball. He can find a pass. He's brilliant. I really like Rothwell. And those 2 have done fantastically well. But we know Ampadu and his importance on this Leeds team. We know Gruev, I think he's going to be out for the rest of the season or for a large chunk of the second half of the season anyway. So maybe not that's an issue to delve into for now. But specifically Tanaka, Rothwell and Ampadu, you've got some really, really good players there, and they won't all play, you'd imagine, unless a centre-back leaves and Ampadu drops back into that centre-back position, which you don't imagine is what they want to do anyway. Moving into the number 10 spot, and Brendan Harrison, he has shut a few people up, hasn't he? He absolutely has, because he's the main man in that number 10 position. His impact has been a revelation. 7 goals so far. He started the 3rd most games and played the 5th most minutes in this Leeds squad. So he is a key part of it. 23 starts in that role. He has been really, really quite great. Could they do with another natural number 10? There's been rumours of James McAtee on loan from Manchester City, or maybe a permanent deal. I think that would be incredible, maybe to share the workload with Aronson, because behind him, Ruter's obviously not there anymore. You've got Piru, and of course he can play up front as well, and we know how many games he's played up front. We'll come on to that in just a second. But as that sole number 10, Aronson is that player. The wide positions have been shared by 4 players. Nonto's played on both sides, with James, Solomon and Ramazzini sharing the rest of those areas. Really nice blend of profiles in there. Some really nice blends of profile, and they all offer something different. I've been so impressed by them. Daniel James is the speedmeister that can often come out with an absolute worldie, and then sometimes not finish a really simple opportunity. Slightly inconsistent with his finishing, but his impact in this Leeds United team, the way they play in transition and on the break, he's a great player. Nonto's ability is fantastic. Solomon has come in and done a really good job. Ramazzini is really highly rated by the Leeds supporters. Again, someone that can grow. He's new to the division. He is developing. He's slightly raw in aspects, but again, a very, very talented player. I look at that department, I think it's really, really strong. Up top, it is Peru or Matteo Joseph, isn't it, really? And they both offer different things in their own ways. One slightly more experienced in Peru, both suited to different oppositions potentially as well, which tactically I think is a really, really important aspect to your squad building. They do still have Bamford and Gelhardt on the books for emergencies, but it does feel like those are the two go-to strikers. The Leeds squad is definitely the tightest we've seen in this title race, but it's very, very good. It's extremely, extremely talented. I'd say you're looking at a number 10 in the January window, but beyond that, it's a phenomenal squad. They lead the way with 52 points.